We have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck.
Hey, everybody. I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and you are on the lifeboat. Peeps, this is a big one, crew. This is a big one. I've been honest on the boat about the fact that I prayed that Calhoun would hit rock bottom. And he has quickly become a member of the crew that most people know, will at least know of. And excuse me, he has passed the 1 month mark, but I'm not going to lie to you. I kind of feel like I did when I had on his sister. It's just one of those things. Can I get a 5x5 from everybody before I start interviewing my boys so that I can make sure that you can hear us? My mom prayed me sober. Oh boy, there's a lot of that goes on. My mom did that as well. So we got, there's a 5x5. So when Calhoun answers the first question, if we could get up another 5x5 so that we know that things are well. My son, how are you?
Hey, Dad. I'm good. You?
Good. Really good. You look good. I'm really glad you're here. So if we could just get one more 5x5 so that I know that we can hear Spanky, we're good to go. I don't know what 5x5 is. Sure. Okay. 5x5, if you're brand new to the boat, is on a score of 1 out of 5. The video is coming in 5. On a score of 1 out of 5, the audio is coming in 5. So 5x5 is a term that they use on live stuff to let you know that we're coming in good both sides of the equation. Spanky, so you are what, 31 days today?
Yeah, I'm also 31 years old. That's weird.
Right? It just happens to jive. At least you're getting it under control a lot earlier than your dad did. You know, when I was getting ready for this, the interviewing your son is just a lot different than interviewing anybody else. So when I was getting ready for this thing, I realized that I'm going to have to ask some questions that, you've been very open with me your entire life, but there are going to be questions I may not want to hear the answers to, but I'm going to do them anyway. Take us through the start of your drug use. In other words, how old? What did you start experimenting with? I should probably preface that I was there until you were 11. At which point, you and your mom moved to California. So, talk us through the early days. Your experimenting. The whole 9.
I think I was either 14 or 15 the first time I had a drink or smoked weed. I'm pretty sure that I smoked pot before I had a drink. I'm pretty sure that I had a cigarette on the same day that I smoked. Well, no, around the same time though. I started smoking, drinking, and smoking cigarettes as well. Like all 3 of those substances around the same time. They were 14 or 15, not certain. And I was living in California with my mother and her significant other at the time, and my sister. And yeah, it was that way for a long time. I had a very healthy fear of drugs and alcohol from, my childhood, from what I thought I knew or from what I had experienced. So that, carried through until probably graduated high school. I mean, I had done some benzos here and there. I had done some, party drugs, maybe like a Vicodin or something here and there. But there really wasn't any abuse of anything other than alcohol, cigarettes, and marijuana until I had graduated high school. And when I graduated, I was homeless already. So like a lot of things changed in my world, in my mind, just everything changed around that time. So with that, I think that the way that I viewed drugs, the way that I viewed my life, and the choices that I was making and going to make changed drastically. And I think that also played a big part in how my experimentation would go forward. After that, I really got into pretty much everything. Ecstasy was big for a while. I tried acid and mushrooms, and I mean, we don't need to go through the whole slew. I've pretty much tried everything. I haven't done heroin, and I haven't done methamphetamines or any amphetamines. Well, that's not true. But done lesser forms of both. You know what I mean? Like I've definitely done OxyContin. That could have been fucking terrible. That was scary. And I've definitely done ecstasy that was more amphetamine than fucking MDMA, or pardon my language, than MDMA. So I'm sure that I have a great idea, and I don't need to go down those roads. But recently, and this was when I was 19, I was doing all these things, right? 19, 20, blah blah blah. I went on for years, but I didn't do cocaine until I want to say like a few years ago, between 3 and 5 years ago, and I didn't really like dive headfirst into it until like a year or two ago. And the last 6 months to a year of my life have been fucking insane. Sorry, I'm so sorry for cursing. I will do better. But it was insane, absolutely insane. And looking back on it is even more wild to the mind. But yeah, cocaine and crack were difficult for me, and I'm very grateful that
you said when you graduated high school, you went basically you were homeless at that time. This would have been around the time I was in for bank robbery. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Okay. Something that jumps out at me. You said when I said take me through your drug use, you said I was kind of afraid to try the heavy stuff because of what you had seen. Obviously, yeah. Mom and dad were drug addicts. I'm surprised though that the drinking wasn't something you were afraid of, because I think of all the stuff you saw, wasn't that one of the things that you probably saw the most of?
Looking back, I think the alcohol was never, and this is going to sound funky, but it was like hiding behind the elephant in the room, which was the heroin, right? And at that age, I didn't understand any of this. You know what I mean? Especially the alcohol was only really an issue in my childhood when I was very young. At least that I remember. I don't remember anything bad happening that was related to alcohol since I have like coherent memories. The only memory I have of related to alcohol and negativity as a child, I was very, very young, and I don't even remember it very well. We were in Texas.
There was a lot of really heavy drinking that was going on in Utah, but drinking was never my thing. And I'm not trying to take a trip down memory lane for you here, but I also think I should probably point out for people that, so when your mom and you went to California and she went into rehab, you were living with your grandparents.
Yeah, this was like 2015 or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Did you say 2015?
Yeah, because I graduated 2010, so maybe it was more like 2013.
It was Yeah, it was prior to that. You were 11 years old, so you can do the math. It would
So it
be
was a
about
lot. Yeah,
13.
I'm way off. I'm way
Yeah.
off.
So you were 11 when you went to California, and the when your mom went to rehab, they brought you in to this. I remember like it was yesterday. You calling me and like almost like you were snitching, saying, mom's got a drug problem, and I remembered having the conversation with you where I said, I'm a drug addict, and it being. I mean, do you remember this, or is this something that? Okay, because I remember almost having to talk you into the fact that I was on drugs. So I think that there was looking back through the lens of an adult, you probably see a lot of things that you go, "Oh, that was obviously drugs."
A
But
ton.
growing up, did you? I mean, do you? Are there memories that jump out at you about drugs?
Really, I feel like a lot of the bad stuff is probably suppressed because, like, I could dig it up, now and again and relate it to things that are going on in my life today. But really, what I remember the most are happy stuff, and I remember you not being there. I remember playing Legos by myself. I remember doing everything by myself. And I remember, I was so cognitive as a kid too. I remember knowing that something was like you were either working, I don't know, you would be gone for forever, and then we would go to Nickelcade and spend $100. You know what I mean? Like we would. It was interesting. Like I understood that you felt like you needed to do that because you weren't there. And I also knew that you weren't there. It was weird. It's very weird to look back on and think about my mind as a kid and how I perceived all of that. But I remember jumping on the trampoline with you. I remember skiing with you. I remember you teaching me things that changed me for the better. You know what I mean? I don't remember a whole lot of bad stuff, which is cool.
The
You know, I do
the being
remember that one thing about mom, alcohol and this. Go ahead.
the a lot of the being gone too was at there was that period early in your life. I was working as a public speaker, and I would be gone for for stretches, and then I would and I think even without the drugs, when you come back, you want to grab your boy and spend time, and the money was one of those things that. But no, I think it's sometimes it's so painful, Calhoun, to look back, because the realization that and I've talked about it on the boat, but boy, I've never talked about it on the boat while staring at you. But the realization of what drug addiction does to a father and son relationship is really, really tough. It's one of those things that um, that is painful. So you say about 3 years ago you started to experiment with cocaine
Yep.
powder.
Yep. Always.
How it was always powdered.
Yeah. In fact,
So
when
what?
I started doing crack, we would cook it ourselves.
Oh, you were so basically you were basting it up or whatever.
Yes, sir.
Baking soda, water, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
I don't want to
Just
talk
curious,
about
because
that, but
there's a couple of different recipes, but yeah. So anyway,
um,
you shake
yeah,
it. You were still smoking crack.
yeah.
How long did that go on?
Hard to say.
Okay.
Would you like me to elaborate?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I had the cocaine habit, but it wasn't like every and at this time when I picked this habit up, I was partying all the time. Um,
When you say partying all the time.
Drinking, smoking,
Okay.
acid, mushrooms, ecstasy. I was always changing my headspace every day. And on the weekends we would mix it up. We would do all kinds of stuff at the same time. Um, Definitely playing with my brain and my brain chemicals a lot. But yeah, so keep in mind when I formed this cocaine habit, that's where I was. So it wasn't like I was doing cocaine every time I was partying. Well, I wasn't doing cocaine every weekend, not even close. But somewhere around a year ago, um, everyone around me was doing cocaine, and now I'm the one that has good hooks. So, I was buying more than I needed and selling some, and, just doing it at work, doing it in the morning, doing it all the time, and I started smoking crack when I had this barber, pretty legendary, and we would smoke crack after he would do my hair, which is kind of strange how we fell into that habit, but it became a habit very quickly. And that's why it's hard for me to say, because I don't know how long that went on. I have no fucking idea. Pardon my language. I'm so sorry. I will do better. I have no idea how long that went on. And that's terrifying. But I can't even speak to him anymore. Thinking of him makes me feel weird, Just lame. Now I don't have a barber, so I guess I'm just gonna shag it. That's okay.
Not the end of the world.
I'm not smoking crack. I'm not doing cocaine. I'm not drinking. I'm not doing anything. So that's worth it. There's a million barbers.
Yeah, there are absolutely a million barbers. And the sort of the realization that you really do have to change people, places, and things is something that I think is kind of essential. And I know that I've talked on the show about things that you like it when I center on rehabilitation, and it's important that that was the purpose of the boat from Jump Street. It really was, and it's there's sort of been a bit of an evolving. But the reason that I bring that up is this: the harm reduction is like the buzzword in the drug world now. And what that basically means is that the government now spends a whole lot more money trying to keep the drug addict alive than force the drug addict to quit. They've come to the realization that if you're not ready to quit, if you walk into a 12-step program and say, yeah, I do a lot of cocaine, and they say, well, good, are you ready to quit? No, I'm really not. They basically tell you to leave. And that's not much of a harm reduction model, right? That's not such a great thing. But in the new way that people are looking at this, as opposed to total abstinence for anybody who is a drug addict, there is a growing trend of people who say, okay, so you're never doing cocaine ever again, you're never drinking ever again, but you're going to smoke pot. Or you're never going to do cocaine ever again, and you're never going to smoke pot, but you might have a couple of beers. And there's a shifting mindset of people who believe that is a possibility versus the old model, which was if you take some aspirin, you're going to be back on pills. Or, if you take some headache medication, it's just a matter of time before you're drunk again. So are you done with weed, or are you smoking pot? No judgment.
I'm smoking pot. I wish you hadn't asked me that.
You know what? It's here's the thing. I really have evolved in my opinion on this. This is something that I know a lot of people who smoke pot who do not seem to get out of control. It doesn't seem to rule their life. It doesn't. I've said from the very beginning of the Lifeboat that this was never about being anti-drug. It was about being anti-addiction. And there really seems to be some things that help people, especially in the beginning days of sobriety. And I've done shows on it. I'm not judging you, Calhoun. I'm really
I
not.
know. I just think the same concept is like a non-addict isn't going to understand what it means to be an addict. I don't think everyone's going to understand that, And I think that perception is important. I don't think that that's something that I need to admit to.
Well, and here's something that I like. I like the idea that we're talking about this because I think this is important. If this is going to be a shifting paradigm among people in rehabilitation, then I think that this is something that needs to be discussed. Let's just say, for example, people who use marijuana to never do cocaine ever again. I don't have a problem with that. And I don't know that it's going to drive every single person back to cocaine, which is what they've been teaching people for years. I don't think that the research actually bears that out. But when you run a program like the Lifeboat, you got to be really careful because there is going to be somebody on the boat who uses a few beers to not do blow. But a lot of people on the Lifeboat don't need to hear about somebody using a few beers. and there are people on the lifeboat who don't want to smoke pot ever again, and they don't need to hear that it was a wonder drug for everybody else. So I think that going forward, the rule should just be: don't be a jackwagon. If you happen to be using another substance, don't advocate it for other people. You can just, if you say, hey, you know what, this is a day where I might smoke a joint or whatever. But the people that come on and sort of beat a drum for it are probably not such a great situation.
I agree, especially because everything is so unique to everybody. I don't think that that's something that I would suggest for anybody. I think that's something that people should find for themselves. Especially with marijuana in particular, it affects everybody very different. And we're talking about getting sober, which I think is largely a mental game. If you're going to start messing with your mental to fix your mental, that's a little complicated. I definitely would never advocate that. But it does help me a lot. It helps me a ton, especially after the depths that I went to of changing my mind state. A little bit of herb is really it really helps.
Takes the edge off for you. Again, it's kind of a paradigm shift in how people view versus total abstinence. And I think that the legalization of weed has brought the subject up far more than we probably ever would have heard it before.
That's the precursor to change.
Yeah. So I have to ask you this, because I am now going to ask virtually every single person that comes on the channel for the rest of the time that there is a channel. How do you feel about the war on drugs, and how do you feel about the concept of decriminalization as a solution instead of the current business model of the war on drugs?
I think the war on drugs is a money-making machine for the government, and I think that decriminalization takes that away from them. So that's why they're against it.
I think that there's probably something to that. Like I've said before on the boat, the war isn't winnable, but it's fundable. And I think that they like spending all of that money. I really, really believe they like spending all of that cash. But it's really been bizarre of late, because it's a subject that is hard to talk about because it butts up against politics. And I know that very few people like to any politics with their sobriety or anything else. The other thing that, the more I deep dive into this, Calhoun, and I'd love your opinion on this, but all of the statistics that they give us on all this stuff, I think, are all wrong. And I don't know that I've ever heard any. Go ahead.
Why would they be right?
Well, it's a very solid question. But here's my problem. Like when they ask the number of people who do amphetamines, or they ask the number of people who use opiates, not taken into account in any of those studies are the people in prison or the people who are dead. So just for starters, that skews the ever-loving hell out of any of the statistics that are out there. It just seems to me like almost all of that is basically based on a lie. I got a question for you that I think is I'm very interested in. I'm very interested in this. You don't have any children. I know that day is coming where I will eventually be a grandfather. In the interim, it's pretty heavy when you talk to your child about them using drugs. It's a very difficult thing to wrap your brain around. It has to happen, and the fact that you've always been very open and honest with me, I think, is a beautiful thing. And I think because of that, you were able to reach out to me knowing I wasn't going to rip your head off or do anything else, and it's probably been beneficial. How do you feel about your baby sister? How about Cedar experimenting? Is that something that gave you pause?
Terrifies me. And I also want you to know that if I wasn't able to call you and say that, I wouldn't be where I'm at. Like that, I needed that. That saved me. If I hadn't called you and came clean and admitted all of that shit, I would just be right where I was. I needed that. I really needed to do that and keep myself honest. I can't lie to you. The honest truth. Or
I don't know that people get this even when I say it, because it just is such a bizarre thing for so many parents to hear. But 31 years, my son doesn't lie to me. There was never a time, even as a kid, that there was never that, did you do this? No, like that just never took place. It was always very very strange that, but you were hands down the most honest kid that I had ever met in my life. Sometimes too much so. Like I remember getting out of prison after the bank robberies and talking to you, and I said, have you? I know you've smoked some pot. You haven't done anything else, have you? And you just went and just started to unload. And I remember sitting down and just sort of dropping into my chair and not wanting to lecture you or anything else, but just, saying that you do realize that you're a genetic, time bomb, but I can't tell you how proud I am of you. 1 month in the rear view mirror is absolutely huge. What's been the biggest challenge at day 31?
Consistency. I made a lot of good habits and did away with a lot of bad habits, but it's really easy to backslide at all times. I think one of my great skills is resting on my laurels, which means getting lazy after I succeed, basically. So I'm aware of that, which is cool, so I can change that, which is cool, but still that, I find myself often in my life knowing what's right and what I should do and having a very hard time turning that into action. So I know what needs to be done, and I'm just really working on the action part of it, and that is definitely the most struggle. At the same time, that's a problem I'm okay with. It could be way worse. I could be struggling with, I don't know, a myriad of things that I've already built a foundation with. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that there's a little spiral pattern going on in my progression. I'm sure I'll spiral back to these lessons that I've already learned. I'll have to reassert, that I know how to keep that ball in the air, so to speak, juggling all the things that I've learned in my life. But consistency has been a struggle, and I'm not failing.
No. Well, you know what? Here's the thing. I'm closing in on 8 years, and there are still days that I don't feel very successful so it doesn't mean that I used or that I'm failing. I just feel like I'm not doing a great job of holding it all together. You drank for a long time. Has the cravings? So say again.
That was the real issue looking back. Sorry. Yeah.
How have you been with cravings?
Cravings for alcohol?
Yep.
No, that has not happened. When I went to a death metal concert last week, I think, maybe 2 weeks ago, I can't remember. Very recently, and the first act sucked so bad, I really wanted to buy a beer. There's people all around me drinking beer. I used to get really drunk at shows. I did not have a beer. And as soon as the second band came on and redeemed the crap show, it was fine. But, little moments like that where my brain is moving quickly and I'm uncomfortable, or I'm trapped and I'm uncomfortable. My brain is like, let's feel better. And that's not the answer. And I recognize that. But those have been the only times I've had cravings. It's been very strange. And, the only time I've really had a craving to do cocaine or smoke crack was when I talked to my barber that one time. I texted him like, hey, look at this new vape I got. It tastes like orange soda. As soon as he hit me back, all he said was, haha, I'm going to have to get one. And I felt fucking terrible. Pardon me. I just keep dropping them. Sorry, Dad.
You'll
so the craving has not been an issue at all.
And to your credit, you described the concert that you went to where the first act was just awful, and I think it should probably it bears mentioning that you reached out to me during that lousy act.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I think is I think it's a pretty cool concept that that I'm in year 5. I think that's awesome, but it's a great life lesson. If you feel like getting a drink for any reason, right, or doing or hitting the crack pipe or whatever your substance of choice is, and you just can't seem to change your environment. Like walking out of a rock concert might be a little difficult, right? So if you're sitting in your house staring at the same 4 walls, it's pretty easy to get up and walk outside, go for a walk, do whatever. Getting in and out of rock concerts sometimes can be difficult. You walk out, hand stamps, large crowds, all of that. But if all else fails, then you reach out and you call somebody that cares. And I remember saying to you at the time, I was like, if you need to book, then get out of there, blow it off. And then I got the text that was like, no, we're all good. Everything is better. But I love that you're communicating, and that I love that you've taken to the boat. I really, it means a lot in terms of putting my mind at ease. Your baby sister said the same thing.
I mean, it's helped a lot, quite frankly.
It's a good group of people.
I was going to say something. It'll come if it's important.
Your grandmother would have said, your Nani would have said it was probably a lie. If ever you say, "Oh, no, something I was about to say," and that was probably
a lot.
My grandmother, Spank's great grandmother, the one that you dropped an F-bomb in front of when you were 2 was one of the.
I have a propensity for that.
You have a propensity for F-bombs, but it was quite a shocker at 2. I'll tell you what, it was one of those things that that really got our attention. So I have to ask you about something, because from a father standpoint, right? Not as captain of the lifeboat, but just from a father standpoint, when you have a kid, if your kid is a mogul skier, you think to yourself, you know what, they may end up getting injured. There's a chance they'll probably end up doing some pain meds or whatever. If they're this hobby or that hobby, it tends to make you wonder if the things that they're doing for entertainment might lead them down a road that could be dangerous. And since the lifeboat has only seen you in the comment section, they probably don't realize my son spins fire. If you're not aware of what exactly that is, I will not do a bad job of trying to describe it. I will let Calhoun describe it. But I'll be honest with you that there are times, Calhoun, that I get that I worry about you, because I know that it's one of those things that you're going to see it at Burning Man, and you're going to see it at at shows like it tends to. I wonder, maybe I should just ask, do you think that's something that runs in drug circles? Does that make you nervous at all?
Oh, yeah. But at the same time, the people that I have met and connected with in that world are some of the most loving, caring, understanding people that I've ever met. So I don't worry about it in the sense of anything. I only worry about it from an internal point of view. Like it's readily available.
Right.
They don't really mess with white powders, but they do a lot of acid and a lot of mushrooms. And I'm not gonna lie, I have intentionally not hung out with. I have intentionally not gone to a couple functions because that's part of the plan. I don't want to go, connect with my old friends and dance the night away just to leave when they all drop, or just to not drop when they all drop, and then I'm they're like, why the heck am I here? It's just not something I'm interested in. So that not a fear, really, I guess.
Well, no, that's and I'll be honest with you, if this is just going to sound insane to so many different people, but if I would rather have you around a crowd that does psychedelics than a crowd that does powders, just because it's one of those things that people who tend to abuse psychedelics, well, even the term abuse psychedelic is probably something that doesn't make a lot of sense. It's a substance that people tend to use, but it's not I don't know. You don't see too many people in rehab for tripping.
No.
It's really kind of a different. And just real quickly, because I don't usually do this during an interview, but Christopher Cooper said, "This stream has made me feel thankful that my kids haven't done drugs, and I'm hoping that will be the same, especially my downfall, which has been alcohol. I'm praying that they don't fall to that." Christopher, let me make a suggestion for you. Have your kids watch this live stream and watch it with them. Communication is your absolute best friend when it comes to trying to keep your offspring from doing drugs. An open, healthy dialogue between you and your kids will do so much good. And I know it's scary to have that conversation, but it's a lot less scary than getting a phone call at 3 a.m. that says, "You know what, Dad, I'm addicted to drugs," or whatever. The more open and honest you can be with your kids, the better a chance you have of them. They're still going to experiment. They are. That's just usually the way it goes. But like Calhoun said, he didn't hesitate. There was not a moment's hesitation of him calling me instantly and just sort of opening up and telling me that he needed help. And it was a pretty beautiful thing. Calhoun, explain the fire spinning. Don't light anything on fire or try to do it right now. But if you could explain to people a little bit about what it is, because I'm sure that there are people that don't have any point of reference on this.
I was standing on my chair because I thought I had nunchucks up on my shelf that are fire nunchucks, but I can use a visual aid, but they're not nunchucks. It's like this huge thing I'm not going to put down.
Okay.
So if you're familiar with color guard in like high school, where like they twirl batons and guns, and I don't know the terminology, but it's like I don't know. How would you describe color guard, Dad?
No, I think you were doing a fairly good job. It's an awful lot of spinning of things like flags, guns, and it's done almost at like as entertainment, and usually with some form of synchronicity between the people who are spinning and yada yada.
So what I do is very similar to that, but we have toys, tools, whatever, stabs, fans, swords, hula hoops that have Kevlar wick attached to them, which basically you can soak Kevlar wick like a candle wick, WICK. We soak this Kevlar in fuel that burns. I'm not going to tell you what it is. Don't try it at home, please. Please don't.
Right.
Don't hurt yourself. It's very dangerous. And that way the Kevlar is resistant to fire, so it doesn't burn. The fuel burns. So then we have this act, this performance, this organized, choreographed dance, if you will, where we do the color guard thing kind of, except it's with fire stuff, fire guns, fire stabs, fire swords. And if you've ever been to Hawaii on vacation and done the luau, where they like roast the pig and they do the performance, the fire dancing, that's traditionally where it came from, was island tradition. And what we do is a little different. If you've been to the luau, then you've probably seen a lot of fire knife, is what they call that. One side of it is a blade, and the other side is a torch. So that's not what I do. That's pretty scary. But I mean, I'm less afraid of fire than knives, because I play with fire. I don't play with knives. So I don't know. And that is the weird, it's such a weird hobby. But I have to say, it's very rewarding. I didn't seek this out. I just kind of stumbled into this crowd, and man, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I love the people that I've met and adventured with in this circle of people, and I love where this passion has taken me and what I get to do with it. I really enjoy performing. I enjoy talking. I enjoy all eyes on me. And it took me a long time to accept and admit to myself, but I really love dancing and shaking my butt. I tell you what.
There you go. You also, this is also obviously not done at 11 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, probably not. Not on fire, at least. We don't generally practice on fire unless coming up on performance time.
It's dark out.
Yeah, you really want the sun to go down for it to really, be of good effect. And I wish I had a visual aid, but maybe it's better that I don't. If this is
Well,
going to continue.
it would probably go viral if you set the house on fire, but I'm not sure that I would want you spinning anything, inside the house anyway.
Nope, I like my house.
Yeah, that would make me slightly nervous, to be honest with you. How many years in a row have you been to Burning Man?
So not including the pandemic because it was Burning Man stopped for like 2 or 3 years. I can't remember exactly. I went
Right.
the two years in a row prior to the thing,
Yep.
and
Well done.
and then the first year it started again, which was this last year that just passed. I went. So I've been 3 consecutive years if you don't include the pandemic.
And you anticipate going back next
Yes.
year as well and performing?
Yes, this year. I don't know if we'll be performing or not. Our crew is a little small this year. Such a large commitment. You end up getting a rotation of people. Not everyone's down to suffer like that every year. Just the sick ones like me. But so we might just go join up with another camp and go do it differently this year. But if we have our way, we will be performing in the Great Circle around the man. We'll see.
All right. Okay, so I wanted to, like I said, when I talk about the childhood, it's painful to me because of the of my failings, and you're kind in the things that you say. On a very regular basis, you try to go out of your way to say that you only remember the good. Sadly, I remember a lot of the bad. But it's since in the last 8 years, how has life changed with your dad? There's a lot of people that I spend a lot of time here on the channel, Calhoun, saying you have no idea the person I was before, and obviously I wasn't beating up my child and I wasn't doing things that but you watched at least once. You watched me smack somebody around, and some you saw some things. The last 8 years, have you noticed the difference?
I mean, there's no more golf club action, that's for sure.
I forgot about
that was a good one, man. Oh, that was a good one.
That is not even the one I was talking about.
I know. I don't remember which one you were talking about, to be honest, but I remember that.
Oh.
You said 8 years? How old am I? 31? 8 years ago? Wow.
Well, for you, it's probably only really been the last bit going on 3 because I was inside, so we didn't get a chance to do a whole lot of talking. But since getting out this time, it's being a little different with Dad.
Yeah, you don't disappear. I can always get a hold of you. I don't know. Our conversations are wholesome. It's hard for me to look back and say, this right here, what happened in this conversation or what happened in this interaction with my dad, that's what was wrong. Or that's because he wasn't sober or healthy. It's very hard for me to say that. It doesn't look like that in my memory. It's not specific and defined. So the changes are that you are here in my life all the time. And that's something that's never been true.
Yeah, well, from 11 on, your early years, and so people who are watching get an appreciation for this. In your early years, I was addicted to pain pills, but I was not on heroin, and that was a very, very different thing. I spent an awful lot of time with you, playing with you, hanging out with you. In fact, as a boy, you probably had bonded with me more than you had anyone else on the planet. You were one of the few kids that everyone who ever ran a school or a daycare said that that when a kid doesn't cry mom but cries dad, that was always a bit of a shocker. You and I were incredibly, incredibly close. I didn't really start going full dirt bag until you were about 9 or 10. That's when I really sort of came off the rails. And then when I sent your mom to rehab, she didn't, she decided to get off drugs and me, right? Which sort of changed that dynamic quite a bit as well. You may not notice things. I notice things, and let me give you some examples without getting too personal or too anything. There were just times in life where if you needed my help, I was never going to be able to do it. I was, if I had $1, it had to go into my arm. And there are times in my life where, I wanted so badly to be a help and to be a dad and to always be there. And I couldn't do it. And there is just a really, the best part of sobriety is knowing that if either of my kids call me for any reason and need help of any kind, that I'm going to be there and I can do it. Whether it's 11 o'clock or it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and whether it's they need advice or they need some money, there is nothing anymore that I'm not going to be able to help with. And that's kind of a unique thing.
I lost my train of thought. I should quit looking at myself. It's not helping my cause at all. It's funny when we have the exact opposite memory of this time period. You always remember not being able to do things, and if you want to hear something wildly messed up but true, that's all that I knew of a father figure was you. You were 10 feet tall. You were a giant. In the midst of all of that, I remember there being Christmas presents under the tree every year. I remember there being so many presents under the tree. I remember understanding that shouldn't be. I remember that remote control car you got me that went on both sides. You could run it into the wall. It had these big old tires, and it would just flip over, go the other way. You got me the coolest crap every year, and I'm sure you stole it. Now I know, but I remember good things, man. I'm sorry.
No. Truthfully, no. And here's the thing: it's probably good because this is people. These conversations hurt, and they hurt so much back in the day that I couldn't have them. Being sober now, no, every single thing you got under the Christmas tree until probably the last year, I paid for. I made a lot of money when you were a young boy, and I was working with I won't say his whole name, but Rex. When I was working with Rex, or the Muhammad Ali deal, when we were doing when I was working with with Global Village. Thank you so much, Ultra MAGA. At that point, there was money. I bought your mother a Porsche for Mother's Day. I mean, I wasn't stealing those cars. I taught you to drive on a Porsche 911.
Hard top. Yep, I remember that. Uncle Kurt drove by and called you like 30 seconds later, like, "What the hell are you doing?"
Yeah, got to the top of the hill. We were passing in opposite directions, and yeah, it was one of those. But you know what, Calhoun, that makes me feel great. And as you get older, there's something amazing about being a child. Because when you're a kid, things are new, and as you get older, the realities of life kind of kick in, and it's awesome to hear that. And it really is. It's awesome to hear that you have great memories of it. You know what I mean? Because as an adult, what I remembered was that my life was a lie. Like, I was on the road and I was making a lot of money when I was working with Danny. You know who I'm talking about, no last name, but that I made a lot of money, and we were able to do a lot of really fun things, and go on vacations and do all kinds of things. But I was living a lie. The whole time I was, I was a degenerate. And what really got bad was when, so that you have a little bit of perspective, where it really went off the rails was I got caught sticking a needle behind my knee right before going on stage to go out doing public speaking. And I got blackballed by basically everybody in the industry just said, don't hire him. You know what I mean? Scoville isn't going to show up. Don't hire him. And all of a sudden I went from being able to make really, really good money to not being able to make any money. And, that's when the move happened. And we came out here and, Uncle Johnny opened up the office, and once again, instantly from being broke to having a ton of money. But after that one, when that came off the rails, I became a thief full time, and it was just. But on the bright side, by that point, your mom had taken you. Sadly, it really kind of ripped me out of being a full time member of your life, which sucked. But it's a blessing that where we are today. I couldn't be more proud of you, and I know that. There are parents of kids who I'm sure would be just terrified that their kids would say, yeah, I did crack, or I did this, or I did that. I would much rather have my kids never lie to me. I would much rather have my kids feel comfortable coming to me with anything. If there's a takeaway from any of this, it's this. There's a really good chance your kids are going to experiment. Statistically speaking, about 8 out of 10 chance that your kids are going to experiment with drugs. So you're left with a couple of possibilities. Them lying to you about it every single time, or being open and honest enough where you can say things like, hey, if you're going to go out, Calhoun, for the love of God, don't, these pills with 30s on them are killing people. Like those kind of conversations actually save people's lives. And sadly, there are not enough parents having those kind of talks with their kids. I realize it's uncomfortable. And I know that when this live feed is over, there are going to be people for whom the takeaway is going to be, boy, was I a rotten dad. And there are going to be people whose takeaway is going to be, he's proud of his kid did a mountain of drugs. There's going to be a lot of that kind of stuff, because there are judgmental people who don't understand the concept of addiction and don't understand what drives that kind of, the genetics that drive it and all of the other factors that drive it. I am proud as hell of you. The fact that you are here and you are, and that you are sober right now, it puts a lump in the back of my throat, and not just mine. Your brother, my brother Johnny, is as proud as hell of you. There's, it's really.
Uncle Johnny. I love you, Uncle Johnny. I love you too, Dad. Thank you.
Thank you. Christopher Cooper says everybody deserves a second chance, every single chance. And the love you have for each other is heartwarming after all you've been through. It just shows nothing is ever over. So thank you for that. You know what? That's a beautiful comment. And I am of the firm belief that, everybody needs a chance until they don't need a chance anymore. And you know what? Sometimes people will make it, and I could have been that person. And the only fun memories would have been the ones that he had from when, he was, a kid. We have time to make a lot of fantastic memories. And we've had, since me getting sober, we've had conversations of hours and hours and hours of just getting on the phone and having some really deep philosophical kind of conversations, which I think, have been wonderful for me. I can't begin to tell you just how much that's meant to me, Calhoun.
A lot to me too. We were talking earlier about happy memories and not being a good father. The next time you feel like that, I want you to think about that one time we were skiing and we were doing the moguls. You know what I'm talking about, right? And if you want to tell that story right now, I would love it, but it's not necessary.
First of all, my son was a madman from the very first time that I put Calhoun on skis. I put him on skis, and when you teach a kid to ski, the concept is French fries or pizza, right? So French fries, you're putting your skis straight and you go very quickly. Pizza, you teach the kids to They bring the tips of their skis together, and it's a snow plow, and it slows the kid down, and that's how you teach them right turn, left turn. I tell Calhoun all of this, and then I get him on skis, and he goes like this. I'm yelling, pizza, pizza, and he just lays 11s. And I skied down, and he, when we were on a very, it was a kid's trail, but I got to the bottom and said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I won." I said, "Calhoun, it's not a race." And I swear to you, he said, "Dad, it's always a race." And he was about 4. But the story that he's talking about, he progressed really quickly. So he said to me, "Do you think we could go on the tram?" And we're talking about some heavy duty terrain. I said, maybe not the tram yet. However, I could take you here. And I took him to some pretty gnarly, black diamond stuff. And I said to him, "Listen, you wait for me, and I'm going to basically, we're going to ski together." And as I came up over the ridge, Calhoun just came over the top and just let it rip. I mean, I thought, oh my God, he's going to die. He had to be going, you had to be going 35, 40 miles an hour, and had a really good head start on me. And the realization that he was in deep, deep doo-doo was sinking in. And, he started.
Same things going through my head.
What's that?
Same things going through my head. I'm going to die. Yeah.
Still, on the bright side, I really was a pretty decent skier. So in spite of moguls and everything else, I just sort of got into a tuck like you would see a downhiller do, and realized that I needed to catch him before he got to the turn, because the turn is basically a cliff that drops off, and he would have been in really, really deep doo-doo. So I just came up, and while I was in the tuck, I skied up next to him and just grabbed him, and it was pretty damn cool, because the look on his face, I said, "Hey, I got you. You're gonna be all right. I got you." And then we skied down the hill at probably 40 or 50 miles an hour while I held on to him, and did a few moguls, and probably a jump or two. But yeah, that's thank you, Calhoun. That I needed that. I got another one. I got another quick one that I'll end with. So Calhoun was doing what's called the Gurn, which is where you go around and get free stuff from everybody. The big
what?
The Gurn. I was doing a Red Bull Big Air Cup event, and Calhoun was up there with me and going from tent to tent getting free stuff. One of my friends at the time, whose name was Christian, was trying to explain to my boy that the Gurn is when you go and work every rep there. So, Calhoun's on his 5th Red Bull, bouncing off the walls, right? And to make a long story short, at the end of the day, when the competition was over and everything else, I'm sitting and talking to the winner, and up the hill is Spanx Calhoun. And my friend says to me, "Isn't that your kid?" And he is heading toward the jump that we were all competing on for the entire day. And my heart went into my throat. And Calhoun, who was this big, right? He went, and as he got to the end, he went off and threw his head back and grabbed both legs. And I thought, this is it. This is how I lose my son and my wife in one shot. But he made it almost all the way around and landed on his chest, did a bit of a scorpion fold, got up, put one ski back on, and skied down to the bottom. And again, I'm almost having a heart attack. And all of my friends, of course, are cheering because they're not helping much. But
they were helping me,
ready to scream my head off at him. He came down, and I said, "Calhoun, what were you thinking?" And he said, "I was that close. Did you see I was that close?" So the whole ride home, I said, "You can't tell your mother about that. No matter what you do, we're going down Little Cottonwood Canyon." I said, "Whatever you do not tell your mother about that. She will not understand." And he's the whole ride home. I won't tell her. He walked in the door and said, "Ma, I missed a back flip by this by this much. went over like a Led Zeppelin. It was not a,
Like the Titanic.
but you were never much for fear. You
Oh,
you were
no.
a fearless kid. Too much so, I'm afraid. Too much so.
Very much. Very naive, very fearless, very reckless.
I don't know that you were naive. I really don't. But you were definitely fearless. You had
Innocent ways. I was very naive. Go ahead.
the
Sorry.
my son had the communication skills that he has today when he was 3, and I'm not being funny. He some of the conversations. I in this day and age, I don't know that I could tell the Chick-fil-A story because I may get I may get blocked for it. But that's one of the funniest things that ever happened in history.
Boy, she's gonna eat a lot of chicken.
Boy, Dad, I bet she's going to eat a lot of chicken. Oh boy! All right, I'm going to end on that note. That does take us to the top of the hour. You know what, son? I appreciate you coming on here for what I hope to be the first of many times that the people on the lifeboat get a chance to see my son. I'm proud of you. I really am. I want you to just stay the course and keep doing what you're doing. I couldn't be more proud of you. I really couldn't. It took me a lot longer than it took you to realize that you needed to make a change. And I feel really blessed that you called me. And I want to thank everybody on the lifeboat for helping my boy get and stay sober, because you all have helped. I love you, Calhoun.
Love you. And
I love you.
I also think, yeah. I also want to thank everybody on the lifeboat. I really feel blessed to have this opportunity to be a part of the lifeboat, not the interview, but the interview. I like interviews.
Well, you did a swimming job on it. You really did. B. McManus, welcome to the lifeboat. Don't know that I've ever had a opportunity to.
I haven't had the chat open this whole time because I'm full screening.
So you know what? I haven't really done a lot of that. Good. You know what you want to do though, Calhoun? Don't turn it off. That way, what you can do is you can go back and pull it all the way to the beginning and read all of the nice things that people said about you. All right? People, go ahead. Okay. People, I will be back tomorrow morning, 5 a.m. Right? We're here on the 5s. I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass is my boy. That's usually the part where you would say Calhoun Scoville. And this, people, is a cat in a basket. Good night, everybody. We love you. Well done, Calhoun.
Thanks, Dad.
Well done. Now let me see if I can end this thing. Let's see here.